Hello world, I'm Del Hussein and this is the Wow Mind. So I am delighted to be joined today by Dr. April Given. Dr. April Given is she's the CEO of Urban Counseling Clique and a professional hypnotherapist as well, and is dealing with communities, youth. I think you're based in Dallas, are you, Dr. April?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
And Dr. April, just in a very quick nutshell, has a really interesting background. She was in the US Army. She has become a PhD and has been practicing for about 10 years, I think, in practice, and
Yes.
is now herself a really prominent podcaster in the United States. To begin with, I guess, Dr. Given, wonderful to see you. How are you? How's it going over there?
I'm great. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me. As you stated, I am a licensed psychotherapist, also a certified trauma therapist, and a certified hypnotherapist here in the state of Texas. But I am the CEO of Urban Counseling Clique, which is a nonprofit organization here in the Dallas, Texas area. So I do have other clinicians that work under me, as well as interns that I supervise in my practice.
So you've been you set up your practice, and what was the mission? What made you do that? Why not just go and work within a hospital?
Starting out, after I received my license, I did. I worked for behavioral health clinics, behavioral health hospitals. I worked for some of the insurance agencies. So I have dabbled in a lot of different things. I worked at a domestic violence shelter. So I did all of that before entering into private practice and starting my own. So my end game was always to be in private practice and run my own organization, but I wanted to learn from people who were already doing it. So once I left the managed care, I went into private practice full time and started working for myself.
And now the kind of areas that you're dealing with, I think you're dealing with some really big areas which I'm sure are being impacted now. People with depression is going to be a big area. I think people with anger disorder, probably more so than ever, people are asking why, what's this happening to me right now? And I think you've also been quite involved with post-traumatic stress disorder as well, amongst
Yes.
just a few of the areas. Yeah. Um,
Yes.
have you seen those areas kind of increasing as a result of lockdowns, as a result of the climate we're in right now?
Oh, absolutely. I also call this, even though we're dealing with the coronavirus and the pandemic, I also refer to this as a mental health pandemic. Every mental health professional, therapist that I know are being overwhelmed with clientele at this point. I mean, we get numerous of calls on an everyday basis to where we have to refer them out to other clinicians in the area because we just don't have any room.
But I mean, in the work that you do, Dr. April, I mean, an awful lot of it is talking to people about, I think, self-esteem and how they see themselves. Um,
Yes.
what seems to be what is making and this seems to be an area that's growing more and more. What seems to be making the mass of people look at themselves and start feeling like this now? I can't believe it's all because of Corona. It must be, I don't know, is it social media? Is it, what is it? Are we becoming inhibited by things? Or
Well, I think because of the coronavirus, now it may have increased because of the coronavirus because people have the opportunity to be inside more to where they don't pretty much have a choice. Social media has been a lifesaver for a lot of people. And watching TV, watching anything, watching social media, TikTok has increased, people are making videos. So seeing this stuff, because now, because you're locked down, you don't have the other avenues, so you have to go to the internet, you have to watch TV. And I think seeing that, because we have these images that portray on TikTok and Instagram of people that's portraying that they have it all together, they have the homes, they have the cars, they look really nice, they're doing these things in these videos, and other people who may not necessarily have all of that is really questioning themselves at this point. So it is a mirror, and it's a self-reflection of, okay, I see that, I want that because they have that. So how can I acquire that? So it's stemming from being visual and seeing those things, but also thinking that, okay, well, maybe I need to step up and do something more with my life. What is my purpose? I get a lot of people that are questioning their purpose right now. Like, what do I'm supposed to be doing? I don't necessarily know. And my answer to that is, first search what you are passionate about and what are your talents. Everyone has a talent. We all have talents, be it singing, writing, cooking, doing hair, drawing, whatever. There's a talent there. So maybe figure out how can you use that talent and maybe turn that talent into a stream of income.
Dr. April, I mean, you came into medicine, into this stream of medicine, but prior to that, you had another career. You had a career in the army, and I'm fascinated by this, as I'm sure a lot of people will be. Can you talk us through that? What made you join the army? How old were you when you joined the army?
Okay. Well, I was 17 coming out of high school. I enlisted in the Army National Guard. So I my initial, I guess, thing for enlisting in it, because I wanted a challenge for myself. I was this cute little cheerleader type, girl
Yeah.
growing up, and I always wanted to explore the world. I wanted to, do something different, do something challenging. So that was my initial a reason for joining, for the challenge of it, to prove to myself that I can do it. And when I initially went off to boot camp, it just really opened my eyes to, when I returned, I was like, this should be mandatory. Like, everyone should have to do this, because you learn so much about yourself, and it's just a whole different level of discipline that you acquire by going through something like that. It can be life changing because you really have to push yourself. And it's a mental process as well, because you're processing all these things that the military teach you mentally to prepare you to be able to fight.
Mm.
So it strengthens you as a person overall, and it teaches you many different core values.
So you were trained to fight, really.
Yes.
Um, and did you have to go anywhere? Did you stay in the US, or were you
Well,
sent out?
I stayed in the US. My unit was actually activated and deployed during 9/11. So my unit
Wow.
went off to Iraq. But I stayed back at the unit and completed me and a couple of others stayed back at the unit and completed the job there while the unit was in Iraq for a year.
And in terms of yourself, when you're here, when soldiers are based in the US, I mean, because this is the thing, we always think it's a bit like firemen in this country, right? You think, well, if there's no fires, what do firemen do? So in the case of the army, if you're not at war, how do soldiers occupy themselves? What's the is it just you get these young people, you tire them out, and you train them so they're always ready and disciplined. But it's almost, I can imagine it's a bit like a fighter training for a fight, but actually not going to a fight. Is it like that, or is it?
Well, no, and but that's a really great question, because that's a misconception that a lot of people have of the military. The military, the Army in particular, and all the other branches, Navy, Marine, it's a regular job, just like you would go to your 9 to 5, at your office or company or somewhere. It's the same thing. when they're not activated to go to war per se, to fight in another country or do something in the land, they are working their job. We're trained in particular different fields. Like my what we call it is MOS. So my job in the military was a logistics supply specialist. So that's what I did. I would, process supplies that went into the base. So we had a lot of different things there, supplies on the truck, boxing those up. So those are things that's still everyday military operations.
Mm.
So even if you're not at war, you still have to do these jobs. You have some military jobs that are cooks, some military jobs that are medics, that they're, in the medical arena. Some of them are engineers, mechanics. So you're still doing that. The mechanics are still working on the vehicles, the Humvees, the different things on a daily basis to make sure those things are ready in the event that there is a war or activation where you have to go away and do some things.
And in terms of your involvement in the U.S. Army, I mean, you were there for 8 years,
Yes.
and and at what point did you think, okay, I need to do something else? What made you think next? There's something new I need.
Well, it was also a great source for me for college. I had spending money while I was in college. So it wasn't something that I wanted to make a career out of per se, to
Okay.
retire in it. So when it was coming up for me, because we have an opportunity where we can re-enlist and stay in, I just didn't re-enlist. I
Mm.
wanted to go pursue, my initial field was being a pediatrician. So my undergrad degree is in biology pre-med. So after I finished with my degree in that, I waited, I think, for a year or two. And then I decided, okay, how can I merge both of these? I don't necessarily want to go to medical school. What else do I like doing? And so I know I liked helping people. I was a good listener and I liked talking. So, and I'm a people person. I love interacting and just talking to people. So I started looking and researching into counseling. And then I started my master's program in counseling. So I started working on that and completed that and started working in that field. And 3 years later, decided to pursue my PhD. It was always in the back of my head whether I should, whether I shouldn't. And I was like, okay, this is what I really want to do. So let me take this route and become a doctor as opposed to. So when I was looking at the different professions, going into medical school, working as a doctor in a hospital or things like that, or even being an attorney, those are stressful jobs.
Mm.
So not saying my job is not stressful, but I love what I do. It's a passion of mine. And it's not a job to me because I love doing it.
But how are you doing this? I mean, this idea of the law of attraction. I think the law of attraction has had some bad press, because of things like The Secret and people saying, okay, well, this is uh, part of it is really relying on people's vulnerabilities, and whereas there's a huge camp that says, do you know what, that's not true, and actually you can do great things through belief,
Yes.
which I concur with, really. But talk to us about it, because you're a practitioner of this.
We live in a universe. We live in a world that we attract things based on our thoughts. If you think negative, I mean, it's just been proven that you will attract negative things to your life. You
Mm.
will never get ahead. Things don't ever seem like they're working because that's what you are constantly feeling and thinking. It's your belief. But as opposed to the opposite, if you think positive and you start believing, that you can have things and you are a positive person, you start to see the rewards. My favorite mantra is everything is always working out for me. And I honestly believe everything is always working out for me.
I mean, this is brilliant, because uh, when one is trying to get into this mindset that you have, and this way of thinking, Could you maybe give them some tips on the kinds of ways that they should look at this? How can they frame this? What things are always working out for me is a really great disposition to have. But what does that involve? What do you need to think? What do you need to believe?
Well, you have to think in those words, in that sense. When I say everything is always working out for me, there is no other option. I don't think that things are going to fail, or I don't have the fear. I believe fear is an illusion, and that it exists because we give power to it. So if you think along those lines, it's a lot of brain conditioning, kind of like a behavior modification that you go through on a consistent basis to believe these things. Now, this is not going to happen overnight where someone just going, oh, I can just do this. It's a practice, it's a process. The brain generally takes 21 days to actually form a habit,
Hmm.
and it's embedded into your subconscious. So I always tell people the first start of this is maybe listening to affirmations or creating a list of affirmations and saying that on an everyday basis for 21 days until your brain starts to wrap around it and really believe these things that you're telling it.
Right now, I think with the world that we're in, where there's a lot of businesses that are struggling to survive, and I think the lockdown, the furloughs that are out there, all this stuff. Um, and you've got a business person there who's thinking, man, this is all just turning to dust. What would be some advice for somebody like that who's trying really hard to pull some energy out and some fire out of themselves to move forward? What would you say, taking all of this stuff?
Well, just that. Creating a maintenance plan is what I generally tell my clients. Like, the maintenance plan would consist of, your personal schedule of what you're willing to do on an everyday basis. I feel like everyone should have a maintenance plan planned out. Life happens, of course, and you may not be able to stick to this schedule, but start with a calendar, or have a big poster that you're placing on your wall, or somewhere that you're passing by every day, as long as it's on display, and create this schedule of, okay, Sunday, wake up 8 o'clock, maybe hygiene, breakfast. What's happening after that? From 9 to 10, I'm self-care time. I'm spending time with myself. That means, hey, I'm journaling, I'm practicing the affirmations, maybe I get a workout in, some type of cardio. I'm a strong believer in exercising. That's really good for your mental health, at least 15 or 20 minutes a day of that. So having that schedule mapped out, okay, after I finish my self-care, my things that I'm working on myself, then what's next? What after that? Maybe I can go take a walk. Maybe there's work time for between that time. Then after I'm done with work, what's this time span looks like. So have this schedule to where you're living life intentionally.
In the States right now, I mean, um, you're, there's been a lot of talk at the moment about um, certain movements that are happening in the US. I mean, the storming of the US, you know, uh,
Yeah.
uh, kind of government buildings. That's been quite a shock, I think, to the rest of the world, in the way we've perceived, the US as the pinnacle of civil society, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden something like this happens, and it kind of breaks that. I have no doubt that anybody who was crazy enough to go and march down to Washington, they felt they were doing the right thing, even though to the rest of the world it kind of looked like, this. Why are you guys doing this? This is like a ridiculous thing to do. But they felt they're doing the right thing. So there's a certain level of understanding or programming or conditioning that they've had, because they must be feeling, I don't know, like they've been forgotten or something, and they felt this was a way of showing something. I mean, there's clearly an issue here.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they felt their president was cheated. So those people felt, the election was stolen, it was rigged. It was a lot of fraud that took place, and they just felt like their candidate, was cheated out of something that he deserved and he's supposed to have. So as a result, you had this language and this rhetoric that was going on, and people, felt like they needed to act. They were told to act. So they became followers, and that's what they did.
Mm. And now in the States, has it calmed down a little bit, do you think?
It has. A lot of those same people who did that now believe that, they were misguided.
Wow.
A lot of them are changing their tune because they really thought that, the current president was going to be arrested. They think the Democrats are pedophiles and
Yeah.
have these sex abuse and all these things going on. So now that they see that these things haven't happened, no one was arrested, it's like, okay, what have we been told? Was this all just a conspiracy like they said it was, or what? So a lot of people are questioning themselves now to the legitimacy of all of it.
And has, also during this period, there was this huge movement of Black Lives Matters, and that it had this huge ripple around the world. In the UK, we massively resonated because it's such a multicultural society, um, and I think that was a really good thing. How is that now being played out in the States? Is it uh, are they developing more with it? Because arguably, I think the last government suppressed it, and there was this feeling amongst people that things need to change. Um, are you already beginning to see the signs of change? Or
I think we still have a long way to go. I think this is a great start. It's a beginning because, we have a vice president of color. We have a president that's for all Americans. And now they are working toward, pushing their positive agenda to get things done and get things back on track. But I think like right now, because nothing has really happened per se, the Black Lives Matter is quiet. People misinterpret, what it is. Black Lives Matter is not just saying, it's strictly for, Black people lives. It's saying, make Black lives a priority as well as other people's
yeah,
lives. Because, the Black and brown people were being killed by the police and, all these things. So it seemed like there wasn't any justice being done. So which formed the Black Lives Matter movement of protesting and making sure, hey, we need justice as well. Don't forget about us. Our lives matter, just like anyone else's life matter.
but look, thank you, Dr. April, and long may it continue and grow. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you as well. Thank you for having me. Have a great
My pleasure.
weekend.
And you, take care. Bye.
Bye.